All right, everybody, we are live after the Rutgers 35-13 loss to Illinois. I'm here in lovely New Jersey. Brian's in lovelier Champaign, Illinois. What? It's not lovely? Who doesn't love a fall tree? You went on vacation to Champaign, Illinois. I don't forget that.
So I had this realization as I was taking the 2-hour drive from Indianapolis to Champaign yesterday. The first time I flew into Las Vegas, it was like desert. Oh my God, a gigantic city, and then just more desert beyond, right?
Yeah.
Every small town in this state is like highway, surrounded by soybeans and corn or whatever the hell they grow over here. Oh, look, square mile radius of town people with like 2 gas stations. Oh, and then there's 5 more miles of corn. And that was my entire 2-hour drive. It was
pretty much it. That's pretty much everything from like Middlesex County to California. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get my drift. All right, let's get the link out. You want to send the link out so people can actually come in, join us here in this thing?
Yes. And whoever is joining us right now, thank you. If you would like to have a question to ask us or a comment or whatever, drop it in the chat and we'll throw it up here so me and Polity could react to it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I was going to tweet it out, but I don't see your link, so
I just tweeted it out.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's break this down. I don't know that there's a lot at this point, kind of breaking down the numbers and breaking down all the. It just seems sort of like a waste of time. But there was a point in this game, like every game, we're like, all right, maybe they've got a chance. Maybe they've got this could be. Yeah, and it was early on to me that when this one, you knew this was going to be another one of these games. Rutgers had to punt, but the punt lands on the 1-yard line. Finally, a good special teams play. Finally they get the play they need. Back Illinois up to their own goal line. If this is when it's going to happen, if this is your moment when you think, okay, the defense can come through here, get a stop, get the ball back in good field position, then you're motoring, you're on the road. Okay, little momentum. It's a field position game. Just force a punt here. Instead, 12 plays, 99 yards, 6 minutes. I couldn't have been the least surprising thing ever, essentially, that start to the game.
Yes. Well, there are many points where you can kind of go either way. On that first drive, Rutgers does a decent job on the first 2 plays. It's 3rd down. Luke Altmaier's in the end zone on the verge of being sacked for a safety. And he seemingly, I have to watch the replay, but from what I remember watching, he just flings the ball out into space somewhere in the vicinity of a receiver. He grabs it and gains a few yards, and then Illinois is off and running, and Rutgers doesn't put Illinois in a 3rd down for the rest of the drive. And it doesn't matter because the rest of the game, Rutgers puts them in a 3rd down. At halftime, they were 6 of 7 on 3rd down, and I think 1 of 1 on 4th down. So, and this is despite having like a 3rd and 12 and a 3rd and 7. Average distance to go for 1st down on 3rd down for Illinois in the first half was like something 8 yards or something like that, and they converted every time. Now, here's why I would counter you. There was a moment where I thought Rutgers could make this a game, and that Eric O'Neill, 2 back-to-back big plays on the second defensive drive, gets a sack. Their first sack since Washington, if you can believe that. That blew my mind. They went 2 straight games without a sack.
The Washington game. Wow. Okay.
Yes, 2 straight games without a sack, which is remarkable.
Huh.
And then after that sack, Illinois does convert a 1st down, shockingly. But Eric O'Neill deflects a pass. Farrell Nago, 2 straight weeks with a big play. This time he gets a pick, and Rutgers has the ball in Illinois territory. They drive down the field. They get to the 22. Ethan Caligmanis throws a nice ball to KJ Duff. He had a struggle in the beginning of the game, but he throws a nice ball to KJ Duff, hits him on the numbers, and KJ Duff drops it. 3rd drop of the year, would have turned a 2nd and 9 into a 1st down, into a red zone drive. He drops it. It's 3rd and 9. Rutgers doesn't convert the 3rd down, and they kick a field goal. So for the 2nd time, they're inside the Illinois 25-yard line, and they get 3 points again. Yes. 6 points on their first 2 red zone drives. In a game where Illinois scores literally every time they have the ball, except for that first interception, you need to score as many points as you can, and Rutgers just didn't.
Yes, totally agree with you. And if you want to say that this game, as much as the defense, again, is playing football at a level that is pretty much unwinnable against a real Big Ten opponent, the offense was bad today too. And Ethan Caligmanis was bad. The running game was non-existent. And we got to remember who we're facing here. An Illinois team that came in under fire. I mean, just getting ripped to shreds, essentially, because of its defense, and the reason why they're 5-3 and why they thought they were a playoff team, and now they're looking, to find the best bowl possible. Again, the opponent here, you have to keep that in mind. You thought this would be a shootout, and if it was a shootout, Rutgers might have won. Like, I get it. Like 35 points is too many points to give up, but I mean, 13, yeah, the offense was bad.
Look, here's the context, all the context that you need. Against Big Ten teams, Illinois, are you ready for this number of how many points they were giving up? 39.6 in conference games.
Right.
Some of that is
Indiana scored like 92, right?
Correct. If you take out the Indiana 60-point bomb, that does help, but they gave up 27 points to Purdue, so it's not like they're this juggernaut defense that got beat one time. And Rutgers scored until a garbage time touchdown in the fourth quarter when the game is over. They scored 6 points. They almost went a full game without a touchdown for the first time since November of 23 against Penn State when Gavin Wimsatt was the quarterback, right? Like, and this is like weeks and weeks of underperforming. They have not scored. They've scored more than 20 points once in their past 4 games, right? They had 19 against Washington. They had 10 against Oregon. They had 13 today, and they had 27 against Purdue, who, again, is the worst team in the Big Ten. Ethan had a really rough game. I'd say probably his worst of the season. And not just because the numbers weren't great, but he was throwing balls 5-10 yards off of target. He was miscommunicating with his receivers, just guys running the wrong route or him not knowing what the right route is or whatever it is, just really bad. And he redeemed himself at the end. But again, the game was over. Illinois had its reserves in. It didn't matter. 180 yards, I think, of his throws to KJ Duff and Ian Strong came in the last 2 quarters when the game was over. Right. So, and again, to their credit, or not to their credit, in their defense, Illinois scored literally 5 touchdowns in their first 6 drives.
Right.
Rutgers would have to be literally perfect to win the first half or the first 3 quarters offensively to match Illinois. Right. Yeah. So no matter how well they played, it wouldn't have mattered. But they were nowhere near as good as they needed to be to make this even close of a game.
Right. Yeah. And I can't sit here and nitpick the offense, but I mean, now it's a team-wide thing. It's not just the defense, the entire team is falling below expectations. And there are things that happen in this game that I keep on seeing. And I'm like, you asked Greg Schiano about it. It's 28-6 already. Game's already over pretty much. But if you're gonna show a little fight in the second half, maybe make it close, maybe keep fans from going outside to rake their leaves. It was this drive, and they had a pair of 4th down, 4th and 3, 4th and 4, so not like 4th and an inch, like the 4th down plays where Illinois is like, you know what, you're not gonna stop us. And both times, Rutgers jumps off sides. And the first time, Rutgers jumps off sides and mauls the receiver. And both times, still, Illinois still made the play. You're just watching, you're like, come on. I mean, come on. It's just frustrating. Again, like the receivers wide open in the end zone. We're seeing this happen where, linebacker goes the wrong direction, and on the first or second touchdown, I can't remember exactly which one, they just roll out, and it's just like pitch and catch between a really good quarterback and his running back, just waiting for, I'm just gonna run here, you run a little further, no one chasing me, no one chasing you, we're both all alone, dink, touchdown. Just stuff like that like last week against Purdue, there were 3 of those. It's just it's week after week with that stuff. It's just fundamental football, setting the edge. It's any quarterback who has a little bit of mobility. And Luke Altmaier is a really good college quarterback. He looked like Lamar Jackson today. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like every time he got free, 30 yards down the field. It's just stuff like that. It's hard. It's hard to watch. Hard to defend, certainly.
No doubt. And to be clear, I went like this earlier because I was going to sneeze, not because the Rutgers defense stinks, though it would be appropriate. But I want to be clear. I was going to sneeze, and I didn't. Look, again, they just don't do anything well. And I guess today, the good thing is they didn't give up a bunch of big plays, right? They weren't getting shredded in the way they're giving up 40, 50-yard chunks at a time, but they're getting nickel and dime. That first drive was the perfect example where Illinois was just dinking and dunking and getting easy conversions and just doing whatever they wanted, right? And I didn't feel like at any point when they were on these critical downs, they had any concern of getting sacked or of having to punt the ball because they just were completing them at ease. And to your point at the end, like they were disrespecting Rutgers going on through these 4th downs, knowing they couldn't stop them, right? Like that has to be a hit to the Rutgers defensive ego because I mean that I don't see a lot of teams going for it on 4th and 5 and 4th and when they don't have to, right? So the one thing they did today that they never do is get a turnover, a critical turnover at a point in the game where it's still a game, right? So it's like when you fix one hole, where you don't cause turnovers and you don't give up big, or you give up a lot of big plays. You don't do that today, but you can't stop small plays. You get gashed by a quarterback that if he had run the ball a couple more times, he would have set a career high. You give up just open receivers, and you get lost on these motions. I mean, to be fair, the second touchdown was a thing of beauty where they go to like a wildcat and then they run some weird trickeration that somehow the quarterback gets the ball back and slips in and scores a running touchdown. But at no point Rutgers had a chance of defending that play because they were 3 steps behind, right? Like, so anytime teams run motion or try to do anything tricky, just Rutgers can barely keep up with their assignments in a regular formation, right? So when you throw in a little bit of motion or things to throw them off beat, they're gonna get beat really bad. So look, I have a hard time. I think we got fooled against the Purdue thing. I think we wanted to be fooled. I think we wanted to see it as a sign of progress. If you look at it objectively, 30,000 feet, they beat the worst team in the Big Ten by 3 points.
The worst team in Power 4, maybe. Yeah.
One of them, right? Like,
yeah,
there's an argument to be made that Michigan State is worse than them. Like, they're not, but they're certainly one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the Big Ten by a wide margin, and Rutgers barely beat them. And now when Rutgers plays a team with a pulse, even a team that's wildly disappointing for what they expected this year, I mean, they get housed. That score was so friendly to Rutgers.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no question. No question. Yeah. And it feels like it almost feels like returning the page on next season already. It's funny at the end of that press conference, and you picked up on it, I picked up on it. I was going back to listen to it again. You know, there's a moment where Greg Schiano, you know, he's only talked for 5.5 minutes. Only you and Fuch asking questions. Again, if you don't make the plane, you don't make the flight, there's no press conference, which I love. But you know, where he just kind of says, like, you ask him a very valid questions about the perception of the program from this season, and he's like, I'm not worried about that. That comes to the end of the season. Essentially said, like, and I can't wait to get there where we can sit down and figure this out. Like, it was sort of like, you know, oh, gee, like my son, like, I hope Christmas is here soon, Dad. Oh, it's only November 1st, son. We've got to get through Thanksgiving. You know, it's like, off season coming up, but you got to get through these next 3 games. It was just really an interesting comment. I'm sure it wasn't, you know, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like he was sending the message there, but it was a sign that, like, he's ready to, you know, get to the autopsy here before the patient's completely dead.
Correct. And they're still doing this 1 game season thing, and they still believe they can make a bowl game because mathematically they can, and they're still going to try to win every game, right? But I think if anybody in the program sits down and looks objectively at what's happening, right? Like, you're essentially playing. You have to be perfect to make a bowl game. You have to win your 2 winnable games left to make a bowl game, and then even if you do that, you're 6-6 at the end of the regular season, which feels like at best stagnation. Right. So I can understand why Greg Schiano, a guy who doesn't want to settle, he said this publicly, does not want to settle for bowl seasons. That's not why he came back. I could see, and especially the way the defense is playing, a defensive coach to have to deal with this week by week. I'm sure he's, you know, excited if he allows himself to think a little bit into the future to get another crack at fixing this entire thing. Now, to that end, we have a question in the chat. I'm going to throw it up here. It's the usual question that we get every time anybody talks about Rutgers football these days. How hot is Schiano's seat? I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's hot at all. I think it might be lukewarm now. I think I'll give it to that. But certainly, you know, it's more like when you get into the car and you have that little button and you can, you know, you switch it and you can warm up your tush there in the morning, and you can take it. You can go low or high. I think it's probably on low. It feels nice. That's the level hot seat. It's certainly not like, ooh, you know, that kind of hot. I just don't think it is. I don't know. You know, we talked about it a million times. Like, Rutgers is not a place that can eat a $20 million buyout, especially when it is not convinced, or where it certainly knows it has not invested at a level where it can compete for players in the portal. It's just, that's the reality of it. Like, you're going to fire, if you want to fire this coach, and we've said it a million times, you're going to have to pay the next coach more money and then give him the money for players in the transfer portal that you didn't give Greg Schiano. Like, that's what's going to have to happen for another coach to come. So they're going to take that first step, that first thing first. They're going to do the first thing where they're going to try to give him the resources and see what happens. And I don't know if that's 1 year or 2 years, you know, but it's not going to be this year unless the coach himself leaves. I just don't believe it will be.
I give it a 1% chance because nothing is impossible.
Yeah, right? I'll give it a 5% chance. I'll go higher than 1. I don't think it's, I mean, if they go 4-8, someone comes up with a blank check and he pushes back up and making change. There's stuff that could happen in the offseason, but it's 5%.
You're imagining a scenario that has never happened in Rutgers football history where someone comes in with a blank check. Has that ever happened? Since Henry Rutgers has bought the university, has anybody showed up with a blank check? I don't think the
they
answer
have
is
checks back then. It's a good question. When Hank came with the $5,000 and bought the university with a bell and $5,000, how did he pay that?
10
Gold?
donkeys or whatever they had back in the day.
What did they have back
Anyway,
then?
anyway,
How
the
do you not know
answer.
this? You're a Rutgers grad. Come on.
We'll do that as an expose in the offseason.
Thank you.
So no, I mean Greg's not going to get fired this year. Let's be realistic here. One, because it's not feasible. They would owe him too much money. This is a cash strapped place. Let's remember what school and what program and what athletic department we're talking about. And exactly to your point, both of his bosses have acknowledged publicly that he has done a lot with a little, right? In different ways, they have said that.
Yes.
So you have to give the guy, even if it wasn't for all the money stuff that it would take to fire him and the entire staff, which again is infeasible at Rutgers, unless the university eats the whole thing, which again, I do not think that's plausible. You got to give the guy a year, an off season to work with a competitive NIL budget, right? And that is what Kelly Zinn and her staff believe they will be able to get him. Now, if you go into next year and things aren't better defensively on the field, if this team isn't competing, for 7-8 wins, if we were in the same exact spot 12 months from now, I still don't think they're quite at a point where they'd fire him, but I think the following year would be a prove it year, like where you have to produce, or at that point, the buyout is low enough that Rutgers can probably afford it. At that point, they've had some data to work with, all right, we've given you this much to work with. You get me this team and these results. Kelly Zinn has said that she's analytical, data-driven. Like she'll look at the numbers. She'll look at the rest of the Big Ten, what they have to work with. She'll compare that with the results at Rutgers. And these things just take time. You have to build the data and you have to give the opportunities and you have to see how it plays out. So
you think, wait, to be clear, you think that he could have this year again next year and the seat not be warm?
No. I think his seat would be hot if they have, if it's 12 months from now and they're 4-8, right? They have the same exact season for a third straight year, essentially.
Right.
I would think that the following year, his seat would be scorching. It would be a prove it year, essentially.
Oh yeah. Well, I think if we're sitting here exactly in the same spot we are next year, right? They are sitting there at 4-5 with 3 games to go, 2 of them likely losses. I think his seat is scorching at that point. I really do. Because I think people will see this and think, all right, we gave you some resources. It is now year 7. I'm not saying he's definitely done at that point. I think there's still, but man, that is going to be a hard sell. If they went out there and they played this game against Illinois, not against Ohio State, they played a game against Illinois where they're giving up, the 5 touchdowns in the first 6 drives, and they look non-competitive and they're jumping off sides on 4th down, when they're leaving receivers wide open, when they can't stop a goal, like all this stuff. They're doing that a year from now to go same record. Yeah. I think at that point it is hot. I think this heat it is. Yeah. It'll be hot here. I know it'll be hot for me at that point. It'll be hot.
So if they go 4-8 this year, or they still can win 1 or 2 more games, right? But let's just say for the sake of argument, they go 4-8 and they get housed by Ohio State. Housed.
Right.
Is next year a prove it year?
I think next year is absolutely a prove it year. Yeah, sure.
I still think there's one more mulligan left. If you ask me.
Man, you're giving him. He topped the ball off the tee this year. Then he shoots it into the woods next year. You're tossing him a third ball and say, let's see, maybe you can get this.
I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I'm saying logistically, feasibly, right? Look, it could someone with a lot of money, a lot more money than me,
right,
and be pissed enough. I mean, we got guys pissing away $50 million for Brian Kelly and $50 million for James Franklin. Obviously, those are different places than Rutgers, but Rutgers also would have to piss away 16 to 20, not 50. Anyway, we're running on hypotheticals here. Let's move on to
are you a Big Ten program or not? That's not a hypothetical. You are a Big Ten program, right?
There are many different levels of Big Ten programs.
I understand that,
Ohio
but you are
Michigan's.
still self-respecting Big Ten program. There's a certain point where the results, all right, it's not working. There's a certain point we have to acknowledge that. I don't know. It'd be very fascinating. We are way ahead. We are so far ahead of our skis, but it's an interesting discussion as to what next year. I think that's going to be the big question in a couple of weeks. Like, all right, we all think he's coming back. What's he got to do next year? Yeah, absolutely. So
it'll make for a fascinating off-season discussion. For now, let's move on to another comment. Ethan Kaliakmanis reminds me of Gary Nova. I mean, I personally can see what this person who has a great name is driving at. Right? Like the inconsistency, the sometimes erratic games, but I mean, Ethan Kaliakmanis has never thrown 4 interceptions
Have to
against
say,
Kent State in ruined
that's the
season.
difference, man. He's not coughing off the ball like Gary Nova did. Gary Nova, was he more physically talented than Ethan? I mean, he had a good arm. He just made so many mistakes. Yeah, I'm not going there. I think, and I also wonder, and I will never get a straight answer at it, but how much of the shifting personnel now on the line, about, the tight end, about Ian Strong's injury. He's back, but he doesn't look like Ian Strong. He didn't look like the player started the season. I do wonder how much of that is factoring into this too. I'm not making excuses for Ethan. He did not play well today, but I'm not quite ready to throw him in the Gary Nova heap yet.
The way I'd say it is that I think they're good. Their highs are probably comparable, right? Like at their best, they're probably roughly the same level. I think at their worst, at their meltdowns, it's not even close. I mean, Gary Nova single-handedly lost them games to Kent State. The Penn State game the first year in the Big Ten was mostly on Gary Nova, right? Like, I think that if you average those out, Ethan is a slightly better quarterback.
Yes.
But I don't think it's an unwarranted comparison.
Agreed.
One more comment we have on the queue, not a question, just a comment. Beyond painful. What's the guy, the Jets guy on WFAN whose name, Joe Benigno? Oh, the pain. Rutgers fans are getting that.
Pain. It's funny. That's good. All right. Do you want to wrap it up there? Or do you have any other thoughts? I mean, I don't. We could save something.
Okay. Well, I guess I ask this question pretty much every week on the podcast, so I guess I ask again. Do you even care if this team makes a bowl game or not? Does it even matter?
Me personally?
No, I mean, like
I think it, because it means beating Penn State, and I think that is a giant eraser for a lot of problems if they can beat Penn State this year. Penn State lost, if you're not watching national football, got beat up pretty good by Ohio State. Score didn't show, but I think Ohio State had like 8 yards of play, so it wasn't as close as the score. So they're not, it's a bad Penn State team. It's an opportunity. I have not seen anything here from this team, from Rutgers, to make me think it can beat a better than average talent wise. And that's what Penn State still is, program. But I think that, so good, getting to a bowl would mean beating Penn State, would erase a lot of other stuff. 100%. Getting to a bowl matters. Yes.
So we went the negative hypothetical way. Let's go the positive hypothetical way.
Okay.
They beat Maryland next week. They lose marginally to Ohio State. They get beat really badly, but
no one's losing marginally. Okay. All right. Hypothetically, I like how we're all hypothetical.
Ohio State is going to beat Rutgers the way that Oregon did, for example. They have a lot of depth. They are playing the long game. They're not killing you like Indiana does, right? So let's say it's like a 45-0 loss. That sounds really bad. It could be a lot worse, right? So they beat Maryland. They lose 45-0 to Ohio State at Ohio State. They beat Penn State, and they go to the Pinstripe Bowl. Mm-hmm. All the ills of this season forgotten. Does it feel like, okay, in the end, that wasn't really that bad?
No, not all of the ills, but a great deal of them, certainly. I think so. Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think people will look back on it fondly. It'll give you a moment. You're in your home stadium. You beat Penn State for the first time since, 1988? Is that when it was? I mean, that's a significant win. That's huge. That is a giant eraser.
This might be the worst Penn State team since 1988. So just to recap, you'd have 3 Big Ten wins, one against the worst team in the Big Ten, Purdue, by a miracle. Let's call it what is it? A borderline miracle. They won that game. Your second one would be against the Maryland team that's going to fire their coach at the end of this year if they have any pride and any semblance of a Big Ten program. Because Mike Locksley is, I mean, words to describe it. And then your third win is the worst Penn State team in a generation that, there is no worse collapse.
It's not the worst.
From preseason expectations for this.
The team that Rutgers should have beaten in the first game in that stadium is worse than this Penn State team. That team was no talent. They under sanctions, Jerry Sandusky scandal. I mean, this team's more talented than that team.
Well, this team is infinitely more talented. This team will have 1/100th of the care factor that Penn State team. That other Penn State team was still playing football because it mattered. This Penn State team is going to be walking into that game.
Who does Penn State have left between then and now?
Look it up.
Like that Penn State football schedule. I got.
Anybody else in the chat want to throw in a comment? So Steve and I could do this for 2 hours.
While we're yelling about this, Nebraska, Michigan State, they'll beat. Indiana, then Michigan State, then Nebraska, then in Piscataway. So that could go 1-3 there. So they're 5. They might not be. They could already be out of bowl contention by the time they've lost 5 in a row. Wow.
Well, they'd have to be They'd have to beat Michigan State, which they probably will. Michigan State's awful. And
Right.
then Nebraska, they'll be motivated to beat the guy who didn't want to come to Penn State, the prodigal son who chose to stay in Lincoln, Nebraska, instead of coming to lovely.
Yep.
Yes, essentially, they're going to have to win every game aside from Indiana from here on out to make a bowl game.
Yep.
I mean, again, I just disagree. I think that we're at this point in the year with these two damaging losses. Unless they just destroy Penn State and it's a really impressive win, and this team suddenly looks like a shadow of itself and is playing good defense, and unless they look better than they have the last 3 weeks, I just don't think this is redeemable. I think this season is going to be seen as
keep this in mind. I want to belabor this. I want to belabor this, but looking at Penn State's schedule again, when James Franklin lost in double overtime to Oregon, then it was a 5-point loss and a bad loss, of course, at UCLA. But then the next two were by a point to Northwestern and Iowa before this one, 38-14. Okay. Generational bad, I guess. Worst team ever.
All that being said, what is their record?
Yeah, it's bad. It's 3-5, right?
Who are their 3 wins against?
Yeah, Nevada, Florida, National, Villanova. I get it. Yeah, I'm not saying they're good. I'm just saying that, just generational bad. Yeah, maybe.
How about generational disappointment?
Yeah, that's certainly true. Absolutely. That is 100% true. That's one of the most disappointing teams. I will sign off on that one 100%. Man, this podcast is going to be a hoot. Penn State week with our takes on this. Man, going to be fun.
I mean, we were talking about storming the field against Penn State a month ago. That's how long the season's kind of been dragging on. We have one more comment. It's not really a comment. It's kind of what we talked about before, but I'll be fair and post it on the thing. His time has passed. Time for change. A real coach that has accomplished something / anything. It just feels like the corner of the fan base that feels this way is growing bigger and bigger, that it's not even a corner anymore. I don't know if it's quite 50-50, but there are a lot of people that are starting to grow impatient.
I think he put it this way. I think it's a third of the people who are impatient, a third of the people who are, thinking it, but not saying it, and a third of the people who are like, oh, wait a minute, come on. Let's be realistic about it and remember what we were before he got here. Remember what we were for years, what we're spending. Let's keep all of these things in mind. And, and before we start hoping to bring in the next hot start coordinator to come in here and lose 78-0 to Michigan. I think that's the other third, but yeah, you're right. There are a lot of people like Darren McCoy who are done.
And just not to belabor the point, this will be our last big picture, but okay, the season is over because of injuries. Give Schiano next year to fix it, then time to move on. This is roughly the idea you were saying where next year is a prove it year. The injury thing, it is what it is. They had 24 guys out today, which is a lot. And in key positions, I mean, you're down your tight end who doesn't really do much in the passing game, but it is something in the blocking game. When in the game you're down, you're starting right tackle, and there's that kind of explains why you go 1.8 yards per rush. Right against a bad defense. Look, it's impossible to quantify the injuries, and like if Rutgers was 100% healthy, what would be their record right now? It's impossible to know that because you don't know what other teams' health situations are, and then you get into a rabbit hole, right? So, but I do think obviously injuries are play a part in this. So, along with getting a better roster, a deeper roster next year, and an improved defensive staff, and all that good stuff you have to do in the offseason, you gotta get some injury luck and hope things kind of balance each other out, and you don't have in week 10 24 players out. When you're playing a preseason top 10 team.
Right. All right. Good note to end it on. We'll be back this week to do a podcast, preview the Maryland game. Keep it going, folks. Come on. Stick with us at least. If you're not going to stick with the program, stick with the podcast. That's what I always say, right? Have a safe drive back to Indianapolis, by the way. You getting some Elmo's tonight? What are you getting for dinner?
So I have 2 more hours in here before they kick me out, and then I have a 2-hour drive back to Indianapolis. I will probably be – and I lose an hour. It's 4:00 here. It's 5:00 there. Jesus. So I will probably eat something by my hotel. And if I get up early enough, my flight's at 11:30. What is the earliest one could have Harry and Izzy's at the airport before it's weird?
I don't know. It's a good question. Is it open? I doubt it'll be open.
It's open for breakfast. It does not serve the cocktail and fillets until 10:30.
Okay, yeah, you can pull that off. Get there exactly at 10:30. Have yourself, make sure they give it to you quickly. I think you can do that. There you go.
I'll let the listeners know. I'll post on our Twitter account if and when I have a shrimp cocktail at 10:30 in the morning, and I won't even need a flight home. I'll just fly with my the stuff coming out of my nose and my neurons firing.
That's dedication. That's dedication, my friend. Good for you.
Thank you. So before I leave for my drive, before I let you guys go, if you're still listening to this or you're listening to this after, leave a comment. Which third of the fan base that Politi spelled out do you fall into, and why? And we can have a little spirited discussion in the comments because we need to get to 1,000 subscribers. So our boss gives us a nice little thumbs up and pat on the back. So subscribe, like, review. Tell us all the questions I should have asked in the press conference video. Have at it. We appreciate all comments. And join the Discord and keep listening so that I can keep traveling to these games and ask Greg Schiano one-on-one questions in the press conference. Because one of these days there'll be a win. There will be a win one of these days, and it'll be a happy press conference.
There you go. All right. Later.
See you guys.